so that particularly cash escrow postings for staff time are carved out, but the rest of them refer to the escrow agreement as opposed to the letter of credit, which was originally contemplated when we first discussed this. Also, one late addition to this that I may not have mentioned before, the legal description of this very long thing on the front here is we're actually going to record it with the plat, so it'll be reduced to a much more manageable one line. That was what the final agreement will look like, that the mayor and the administrator would sign. So those are the main changes to the development agreement, but because we're changing from a letter of credit to an escrow agreement, we felt it was appropriate to reobtain council approval.
So any questions for staff? All right, so because we've made changes, would you like a motion,
Yeah.
John, then?
That'd be great.
All right, so looking for a motion that for the Elam Care Developers Agreement, with the changes as submitted.
So moved.
Moved by DeLuca,
Second.
second by Cahill. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the Elam Care Developers Agreement?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Next item of business is to review the escrow agreement between the City of Maple Plain and Elam.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. We just looked at the developers agreement. We changed it because the funding mechanism changed from a letter of credit to a cash escrow. As that happened, then the city needs to enter into an escrow agreement between the city and Elam on how that cash escrow would work. Again, a cash escrow account is being held aside for public improvements that'll take place on the site. The most obvious one to the public will be the Gateway Boulevard that will be added as a street in between Baker Park Road and Howard Avenue. But also, there's utilities that are being added to the building that need to be completed, as well as a trail that will run north and south along Baker Park Road. Now, to make sure that all this happens, obviously there needs to be that financial security that if for some reason work were not to be completed, the city has access to be able to make sure that these elements are completed. And that's what this agreement is. This agreement allows where our city engineering staff will validate that the public improvements have been made. And once those public improvements have been made to the satisfaction of our city engineer, a request to draw on that escrow will then be submitted to City Council for review. That's what the escrow agreement right there lines out, but because we changed the developer's agreement from a letter of credit to a cash escrow, we wanted to have an agreement on file between Elam and the City of Maple Plain. Is there anything I'm missing, John?
Just mentioning, Mayor and Council, that the 150% will be held back for that final lift, so you'll have adequate funds to make sure that the project gets done correctly and within the timeframes contemplated here. They do have a lot of time to complete it because it's going to be after the total project as negotiated by the administrator, and I think that's a wise decision to make sure there's not too much wear and tear on the new road during the project. But yeah, as far as maintenance, this just really focuses on the fact that the city's obligations as far as maintenance will be right-of-way sidewalks, right-of-way roads, and then everything up to the main is the responsibility of the developer, as well as the maintenance of the bituminous trail that runs north and south adjacent to Baker Park Road. However, the city is putting that on the snow plowing policy, so we'll be doing the plowing, but only the plowing on the bituminous road trail. Excuse me.
So we kind of jumped into two of those then.
Yeah.
We,
Sorry, yeah.
we did
I was
the-
like, that
I
was
got a little ahead of things
the
there.
maintenance
Totally
agreement,
different.
right?
Yes, but the escrow itself, I mentioned those things because all of the other aspects, the trail, the sidewalk, other things like that, are going to be done as a part of the initial project, not the second portion with the final lift.
Any questions on the escrow agreement first from City Council?
Any questions on the escrow? All right, so with that, we're looking for a motion to approve the escrow agreement between the City of Maple Plain and Elam.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Councilmember Fay,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cahill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. And then let's continue the discussion with reviewing the utility and maintenance agreement between the city of Maple Plain and Elam. Not sure if you have
Yeah,
further-
I think John did a really good job summing that up there, that the city, because there are these public improvements being added in, at the time of when the new street is completed, the project is all completed, the park and ride that is being added into the new street is completed, that road will then be turned back to the city. And it'll be a normal road with right-of-way. So though there is sidewalks along that road as well, mainly because we also have a park and ride that'll be a part of that road. All of that will be at city maintenance that we have to take care of. But the private driveway off that road all the way into the parking lot for the new Elam building, that is all the responsibility of the developer to maintain throughout the life of that. There's also the addition of a north-south trail. The idea here is that in the future, as development continues in this area, we'll have a trail that can go from, right now, well, there's a path underneath the railroad bridge down by the stoplight, and that's actually getting a box culvert put in place there. And that there will be a safe crossing point all the way from, on the other side of those railroad tracks, all the way up north to Baker Park up there. So that's the idea of that trail there. The city will maintain the snow plowing and the snow maintenance of that trail, but any long-term maintenance of that trail, whether it's replacement, any type of fixes on that trail outside of general snow maintenance, is the responsibility of the developer. So that's the utility and maintenance escrow agreement between the city and Elam.
All right, so we are looking for a motion to approve the utility and maintenance agreement between the city of Maple Plain and Elam.
Can I ask a question first?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Is it in the utility access and maintenance agreement? You mentioned earlier that the city may in the future, and I use may tentatively, be asked to do some road improvement as far as increasing the stalls available for
Sure.
the new park and ride. Is that contained within?
No, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because right now, there's a requirement, from the plat, there's gonna be 20 parking spaces added on this new road, Gateway Boulevard, for the park and ride. Now, currently, we have 150 stalled park and ride, but the problem with the park and ride right now is that we're not able to get direct transportation routes from here into Minneapolis. So the route that is taken is long, and it's not worth it, quite frankly, for a lot of reasons. Now, in negotiating with the county and the state who funded this park and ride, there was an ask, this was probably about a year ago, that there be an option to increase that number of spaces from 20 to 50. And the city, we believe that if there will be direct routes provided to Maple Plain, to Minneapolis, that would be then an option that the city would look at doing themselves. But it's not in the utility and maintenance agreement here because the completion of this road will already be done, and that right-of-way piece will be turned over to the city. So,
Yeah, even if I may, Madam Mayor, just to add on to that, so the main thing to remember about the utility access and maintenance agreement is we want to use this to bind the developer to do things on the developer property, whereas the additions to the park and ride you're referencing, which will be a part of declarations, not to get too far ahead of myself again, but we'll be discussing there, those obligations can be addressed because within the city's own right-of-way, the property it controls. It wouldn't be put on the developer property, so you wouldn't need the agreement to contemplate that.
Any other questions regarding the utility and maintenance agreement? Okay, hearing none, looking for a motion then to approve the utility and maintenance agreement between the city of Maple Plain and Elam.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember DeLuca,
Second?
second by Councilmember Cahill. No questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. I do have one question related to that we've been hearing from residents, is during the construction
Yep.
of the park and ride, Where will people park? Has that plan been worked out yet, or are we still in the process?
We're still in the process. I know I've reached out to Metropolitan Council, and I don't know what that solution is yet.
Okay.
If there is a solution, but I'm waiting to hear back from them on that because, yeah, it's something I've been thinking about too. Is, we don't have a whole lot of cars, but still, we need to communicate to those folks what's going on here. So.
And I'm assuming we'll do our best to try and find some location that works and is wide enough for the bus to turn around and still provide that service.
Yeah, I can tell you that the stipulations through Met Council, and I have had to get into this just because of the new street,
Okay.
they're very specific with how things are laid out and with their buses. If it's at a controlled intersection, they'll take a left, but otherwise it's all right. So, I think that might have to get creative in trying to find a good location that can meet all of their restrictions that they normally have.
All right. Well, I hope that's something staff
Yep.
will do their best
Oh,
at,
yeah.
and we don't want to lose that service.
Yep, that's correct.
All right, thank you. Next item of business is letter H, Fire Department appointing of the new fire chief.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Tonight, like I had mentioned in my memo, that staff had gone through the completion of the fire chief selection process. I want to take a few moments to explain the process to everyone. So we did have a fire chief opening. What that entails for the process is that city applications for the fire chief position is emailed to all firefighters within the Maple Plain Fire Department. This process, just before we begin, is always an internal process. We've never utilized this process as trying to bring someone from the outside in. This has always been an internal process. The city did receive 4 applicants for the fire chief position. All 4 applicants were good applicants. As a result, once those applicants are received to city staff is looking to receive feedback from firefighters. And the whole reason why we're looking for feedback too is then we have an interview panel, and we'll get to that down the line, but that feedback is very crucial into the panel, and I'll explain that. So feedback forms were put together by staff and then emailed out to all firefighters. Staff did receive 3 feedback forms from the fire department. As a result, those feedback forms, as well as applications and interview questions, were provided to a interview panel. That's the next step. First step, like I said, we get our applications out to the fire department. We got 4 applicants. From there, we ask the entire the fire department for feedback on all 4 of those applicants. The last step that we have here before we go to council is we prepare a panel, which the panel is made up of the fire commission chair, the city administrator of Independence, Mark, city administrator of Maple Plain, myself, and 3 firefighters, and those firefighters are termed out like this. The first firefighter would be the firefighter serving the longest on the fire department without a conflict to any of the applicants. So a conflict would be if there's a relationship from a family standpoint. That's a pretty strong indication for a conflict. I suppose there's other scenarios that a conflict could arise that I'm not thinking of, but right now that's usually the most common one. From there, it would be like I said, the firefighter with the most experience on the fire department. Then we're looking for the next firefighter that is closest to 20 years of service on the fire department. And then the third firefighter on the panel would be the firefighter closest to 10 years. And the idea of trying to spread out this is to get different viewpoints from the fire department. So we don't want to have, we try to get, like I said, if you have someone who's on the fire department for 10 years, as opposed to 20 years, as opposed to 30 or 40 years, there might be very different viewpoints on what the future of the fire department should be. So that's why that's lined out that way. What then happens next is all the feedback received from the fire department is then given to these interview panel members. The applications are given out as well as the interview questions. What we do then is interview each of the 4 applicants one by one. We do that. We ask them all the same questions, and then we have a conversation as a interview panel and come back with a recommendation like we heard tonight for the city council. And what we do have is a recommendation to approve Dave Isinger as fire chief for the Maple Plain Fire Department. Now, a little bit about this term. The fire chief appointment runs from July 23rd, 2019 through December 31st of 2022. We received a tremendous amount of feedback, well, 3 from the active firefighters. We did receive some feedback from retired members. That was submitted onto city council as well. But at this time, the recommendation still stands from the panel to approve Dave Eisinger as the fire chief for the Maple Plain Fire Department. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions pertaining to the process and how we got here.
Any questions for staff regarding the process or any clarification? Okay. Hearing none, so looking for a motion to approve Dave Eisinger as the fire chief.
I'll make that motion, and I'll just say, having served on the interview committee, it was not an easy decision. We had lots of good interviews, and it was a long discussion, so it was not a decision taken lightly.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Cahill, second by Councilmember DeLuca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item of business is letter J, approval of termination of restrictive covenants and addition of new park and ride agreement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. In your handouts that I've provided to you today, we have a couple things to talk about for item J. A little bit of housekeeping related to the restrictive covenants that are on the existing property the city intends to sell this week, related to the Haven Homes development. Currently, there are a declaration of restricted covenants on the property, which restricts the use of the property for park and ride purposes on a facility that's substantially similar to as it exists today. Those restrictions obviously don't work going forward, being that the new facility will be on the larger premises, actually in a very different location than where it is now, and appearing very differently, as you all probably noticed on the site plan. Because of that, what we're asking from the county is that they release the declaration of restricted covenants, and that's what the termination is between the city and the county, to release us from the obligation to maintain the park and ride as it exists today. Bobby's been in negotiations with the county representatives for over 2 years, working out the details of this, and the idea is to have them finalize the approval of these documents, I believe, tomorrow night. The termination is really to clear the slate so that we can put this new park and ride agreement, which is the new declaration, which binds the city going forward to leave a park and ride facility within the right of way as is designed on the site plan that you have attached to the agreement, substantially similar to that, with, as mentioned earlier, the obligation to potentially expand that in the event that direct routes are offered between the city and Minneapolis, and the demand then for ridership goes way up, as we anticipate if that were to happen. And in that event, we would add additional spaces within the same right-of-way area, again, property that the city controls as opposed to the developer, but only if that were to happen within the term of the original declaration, which was a 30-year term, so I think we're looking at the better part of a little over 20 years that's left on it. So happy to answer any questions. And one other thing I would add, I am asking just for the authorization to make any final revisions as well from council, just because the county has asked to take a final review of it, and if they come back with anything, and I would certainly look at it from the city's perspective to make sure it was reasonable, but assuming that there are some final changes, I would just need authorization to make those changes so that we could have them endorsed by the mayor and Bobby to complete that by Wednesday and Thursday.
Any questions? All right, so with that, I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the termination of the restrictive covenants, the addition of the new park and ride agreement, and then to give our attorney authorization for final revisions if needed.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Fay,
I'll second it.
second by Councilmember DeLuca. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item of business is council reports and other business, and we'll start with Councilmember Cahill.
Councilmember DeLuca and I convene the Personnel Committee with some items that may be coming forward at a later time.
Councilmember DeLuca.
And I'll build a little bit on Councilperson Caitlin's discussion on personnel. We're also beginning some dialogues about insurance costs and things, remembering that a major part of staff cost is not just their salary, but the benefit cost is also an important one. And I do want to go on record tonight, based on the questions that were asked a little earlier. I personally never take decisions lightly that affect people. I don't want anybody out there thinking that I do. Those are difficult decisions, and the decision to outsource our public works is one that has weighed heavily on me personally to do. It is something we've discussed, as you said, Doug, way back to the time of the study that was done. But know that there was a lot of thought and consideration given to that, and trying to work in the most respectful way that we could with the staff people that we had. Finally, I want to put a shout out to our staff, our consultants, and to Bobby. We are embarking in 2 days on the closing of a $38 million project, the likes of which have never been seen in this city and may never be seen again. This is a huge project, and Mark, your work, and Dan, your work, John, the stuff you've done, and particularly Bobby, well done.
Thank you. Well said.
Yeah,
Um,
eloquent.
Great. Councilmember Fay.
It's been a light month. Began the month with the city administrator review. I think it went very well. I know it went very well. The watershed was canceled last week, so that was out for the month. I have been regularly attending Rotary, although Rotary Thursday fell on the 4th of July, so I was missing that. So it's been a light month, but I expect a couple of representatives from the Orono Rotary Foundation to be here at our next business meeting, 4th week of August, after some reconciliation, to present a check to the city of Maple Plain for the improvements to Veterans Memorial Park, which would represent the proceeds from our Party in the Park this past June. So,
Thank you. I was able to attend Highway 12 with Chief, and he did a great job with that update. I was also able to attend the Downlow Senior Center meeting, and just want to remind our residents that we do have a bus now coming from Maple Plain to the Downlow Senior Center twice a week. And then at this time, once a month, they will be stopping at the Downlow Strip Mall so people can shop at CVS, Coburn's, whatever's in Little Strip Mall. And if that service is utilized more, they will offer it more. So that's $2 a ride. And you can contact the Senior Center directly or City Hall if you need help with that. I was able to attend the Regional Council of Mayors with our local superintendents, and we discussed the workforce needs and the change for hands-on learning. So that was a great opportunity for networking and looking at the future. I also had the privilege of going to the LMC annual conference, which there were some great workshops. Our closing speaker was Governor Walz, and I thought his closing line is important for all of us in all areas of life, and he really focused on compromise and how it's become almost a dirty word and a sign of weakness, and that really isn't the case. That is how we can get things done, is when we compromise to do the best we can. And then also for city events, just coming up, we have quite a few coming up. You can find all the information in your newsletter and on the website, but this Friday we have a movie in the park. Ralph Breaks the Internet at 8:30 at Veterans Memorial Park. Coming up very soon, August 6th, we have Night to Night with our community picnic and blood drive at Veterans Memorial Park. Please sign up to donate blood and then show up for the picnic, where our police officers and firefighters will be there, and dinner is being provided by our gracious sponsors. And as our administrator reminded us all, don't forget to vote on August 13th. And then on August 23rd, we'll have another movie in the park, Mary Poppins Returns, at 8 p.m. at Rainbow Park. So we look forward to seeing you at all of the fun things going on this summer. And any other comments or other business? Right. With that, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Moved by Councilmember DeLuca,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cahill. Any further discussion? The meeting is adjourned at 8:21.